just a brief introduction. We all know why we're here. I said via the memos in the last meeting last week that we would be having the presence of the ambassador and his team members to come and do a question and answer segment on the OECS regime. Thereafter, we'll be hearing some updates from Officer Payne and Officer Mail with respect to the CSME unit, of which they represent the Department of Immigration. So before we get into the meat of the matter, which is the presentation, permit me to make the official introduction. If we could kindly acknowledge Ambassador Murdoch and his team members, Mr. Brown, attached to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and also Mr. Spencer. Welcome. And our lady photographer behind them, Miss O'Donoghue. I beg your pardon. Welcome. Now, as we do with every huddle or meeting that we have within the Department of Immigration, you know the usual protocol is to start with prayer, and today is no exception, so if we can stand for a brief prayer. Mr. Simon, if you can kindly lead us into prayer this morning. Amen. Thank you, Officer Simon. So without further ado, please permit me to yield to Ambassador Murdoch, who will now commence his presentation. Like I said from the outset, it will be a presentation and then we'll have a question and answer segment towards the end. So, Mr. Murdoch, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you very kindly, Chief. And good morning, officers. My name is Colin Murdoch, and I work in the Office of the Prime Minister. And for this exercise, I think it's relevant that I am Antigua and Barbuda's Commissioner to the OECS. A Commissioner is a representative of ambassadorial rank who sits on the OECS Commission. And the Commission is responsible for the general operations of the OECS. Is there anybody who does not know what OECS is? Good, because the OECS is the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, and it's an intergovernmental organization formed by treaty, which Antigua and Barbuda signed in 1981. And then there was a revised treaty, which amended and upgraded the OECS integration arrangements into an economic union. And that was done in 2010. Can't hear at the back.
Thank you.
Okay. And the revised treaty was done in 2010. And it revised the original 1981 treaty and upgraded it into an economic union. And an economic union simply means that the various member states are organized as though basically they were one country. So it is designed to remove all the barriers that exist between the member states so that persons may travel freely, money can move freely, services can move freely, and goods can move freely. So whatever barriers there may have been to the movement of these factors, the OECS treaty, the revised treaty, is designed to remove them. So that, let's take goods. The revised treaty is designed to create a single space. So that if you are exporting goods from Antigua to St. Lucia, those goods are treated as though they are from St. Lucia. It's not treated as foreign goods, so you pay no duties when you send those goods to St. Lucia. You will only pay your port charges and so on, but actual duties will not be paid. And the same thing is reversed for all the islands. shipping to Antigua, shipping from Antigua. This is what the treaty is designed to do. Basically, remove barriers and consolidate the market that exists in the OECS. Now, strictly speaking, the OECS is only about 500,000 people. So, in international terms, it is...
Even if the goods does not originate in the OECS, the barriers to trade is removed, tariffs are removed.
If the goods do not originate in the OECS, then duties will have to be paid. But what they have envisaged is free circulation of goods. So the idea is that the first port of entry of those foreign goods, let's say they come from Europe, first port of entry, you pay the duty, and after that the goods circulate freely. They don't pay any more duties anywhere else that they go. So if the shipment comes first to St. Lucia, those duties are paid in St. Lucia and the goods circulate freely. Free circulation of goods. If it comes to Antigua, Dominica, Grenada, whoever, you pay it in Dominica, and after that the goods circulate freely. Oh, and please interrupt me at any time for any kind of clarification or additional information. So, just like has been done for goods to promote free circulation, it has been done for persons to promote free movement of people. And this is done under, I think it is Article 12 of the protocol to the treaty, where it says that free movement of persons shall be secured within the economic union. And basically, that gives every OECS national the right to travel, move freely, live, work, do anything that you want to do lawfully within other member countries of the OECS. So an Antiguan can, with only his driver's license, his or her driver's license, get up and go to Dominica, live, get a job, work, get married, have children, live your life in Dominica. And it's reciprocal, it's the same for all the countries. I know there are those who will say, well, maybe most people come to Antigua and Antiguans don't go to St. Vincent and Grenada. But all things balance out in the end. And we have had free movement of persons, I think, since 2013. And maybe you can tell me, where's the mischief? What has happened? Where's the catastrophe? Have we been inundated and flooded with persons? I'll take that as a no. Not from OECS. From Jamaica and Guyana and Dominican Republic. Yeah. Well, I'm sure we can have another meeting on Jamaica and Guyana and Dominican Republic. But we're going to focus a little on OECS today. Now, what I wanted to do was to start with, OECS has a promotional video. It's just a few minutes, and I think it sets out the basics very well. So if we could just have a look at that, and then we can go further into it. We can have an interactive question and answer, and we can really get into our OECS stuff. So,
Sorry.
okay, there's another one. I think there are 3 of them. Each of them just,
What is the Eastern Caribbean?
What is the Eastern Caribbean Economic Union? Well, quite simply, an economic union is an agreement among a group of countries that allows the free movement of capital, people, goods and services among these countries without restrictions being imposed. Countries in an economic union also adopt a common set of social policies like access to healthcare, education and jobs, and also monetary policies aimed at ensuring their economies remain stable and prosperous. It's like many small cogwheels coming together to form one large, interdependent and strong system. Why was the Eastern Caribbean Economic Union established, and which countries are in it? An economic union facilitates a pooling of resources among its members to allow more business and competitive outcomes and enhance economic opportunities for citizens. As of the signing of the revised Treaty of Bastille on June 18, 2010, 7 member states of the OECS established the Eastern Caribbean Economic Union: Antigua and Barbuda, Dominica, Grenada, Montserrat, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Other OECS member states are free to join the union. How does the Eastern Caribbean Economic Union benefit me? You can now visit, live, and work in any member state without the need for a work permit or skill certificate and have access to all services. Your employment options are therefore expanded. As a consumer, you will have duty-free access to a wider number of sellers beyond your shores, as goods moving between member states will no longer attract import duties and charges. As a business owner, you benefit because you have the right to establish in any member state. So, if say Carib Tile wants to expand across the OECS, there are no longer any restrictions and technical barriers to establishing their business. The union is also good for service providers such as doctors, teachers, tradesmen, accountants, who can now provide their services to clients in other member states. The OECS has a proud history and bright future, and together, through our economic union, we are working to deliver a better standard of living for all of our citizens.
Frankie, you know I'm traveling to Antigua this afternoon and I forgot my passport at home? Boy, it's a good thing I have my driver's license. I'll still be able to travel.
Oh, how can you travel to Antigua without your passport?
Under the OECS Freedom of Movement regime, OECS citizens can travel to any of the 7 protocol member states without a passport, once they have an official and valid identification card with their picture and nationality on it.
Really? Since when?
Since the establishment of the Eastern Caribbean OECS Economic Union under the revised Treaty of Bastille, it entered into force in 2011.
So, you mean to tell me that I can leave St. Lucia and go to another OECS country with just my driver's license or national ID, and customs and immigration won't stop me?
Yes, you can even use your voter's registration card or social security card. As a matter of fact, as a citizen of an OECS protocol member state, you are entitled to indefinite stay when you travel to another OECS protocol member state, so you can live and work without a work permit or skilled national certificate.
As a construction worker here, I could take my trade to Grenada or any other OECS country?
Yes, Frankie, you're straight.
And what about my wife and children's schooling?
Frankie, OECS citizens and their children will be granted equal rights and privileges under the freedom of movement. That includes access to social services, labor market schemes, health and education for your children and your wife.
This free movement thing sounds nice. Hassle-free travel to any OECS country, live and work for as long as you like. The OECS Economic Union is the real deal. For more information, visit www.oecs.org.
Okay, so officers, that was it. I think it sets out the OECS regime very well and the basics. And I just wanted to mention, they spoke about in the freedom of movement. It's one thing to say freedom of movement, but people don't get up and move, just so easily. You have to have a real prospect of a better life where you're going. So in fact, OECS has a social security agreement between all the social security agencies of the OECS member states. So that if after working for 10 years in Antigua, you decide to move to Dominica, you actually carry your benefits with you. And when you arrive in Dominica, you are treated as though you have been working in Dominica for 10 years. And all your social security arrangements and benefits and so on will continue. And that's enforced between all the member states in order to facilitate and underpin the freedom of movement. That will allow people to move and work, travel wherever they want to go. There are a number of many different aspects of OECS. in education, in health, different projects that bring benefits to the different member states. For instance, the pharmaceutical procurement project is a project where the member states pool their resources and they buy pharmaceuticals, and because of the volumes they get much better prices, so that the drugs that are dispensed by medical benefits have been bought at a much lower rate because of OECS and their pooling of resources. But I imagine that today we want to concentrate on the immigration aspects of OECS and what are some of the practical aspects of people moving and traveling, and maybe you can tell me some of the things that you encounter in your job as an immigration officer that to you present a problem or somehow are affected by the OECS freedom of movement. So I would like us to, get into an interactive session, questions and answers, if I have the answers, and we can see how deeply we can go into the whole OECS arrangement. I myself have some concerns. It's one thing when people sit in a room and develop some ideas and so on, but the practical application, I think, and this is where you come in, can be different. Well, let me tell you my concern. I have a concern about the indefinite stay. Now, indefinite stay means you can stay indefinitely. But it seems as though the indefinite stay stamp is given to a person each time they come to Antigua or to the other OECS countries. So if a person comes to Antigua 10 times in a year or 20 times in a year, each time they get an indefinite stay stamp. I thought you'd get that stamp once, and it serves you for the life of the passport, I would imagine. So, I don't know what your views are, but these are some of the things that I think, from my point of view, need further clarification. We are issuing the indefinite stay stamp, right? Chief? We are issuing the indefinite stay stamp?
Yes, we are.
And every time a person comes, they get that indefinite stay stamp over and over and over.
Yeah, it's a concern to us because it's duplication. It's just the same thing.
Yeah,
one
you're
big
duplicating
stamp.
the same thing over and over and over again. So we will have to figure out the answer to that in discussion with the OECS. Any other concerns or things that you have noticed, or is it, yes ma'am?
Regards to the stamp that they get upon arrival, there's a slight difference on it though as in the date. You understand? So it serves to say when that person came back into the country. Alright? I think that's the only difference with the indefinite stamp that they're getting upon arrival at the airport. So it helps to track the person's movement in and out of the country. I think that's what
So the only stamp that an OECS national would get on arrival is that indefinite stay stamp. There's no other stamp that you would stamp their passport with.
So if they're coming in today, it will be stamped indefinite stay, yes, but it has today's date. So if you're looking at the travel record of that individual through their passport, you can see the entries made into the country.
Okay, understood. I thought maybe you give the person indefinite stay stamp, and then after that you give some other kind of stamp. Like I get a returning national stamp. Maybe some kind of OECS equivalent. Yes, ma'am.
I guess one is that the stamps have a dual purpose. It's not that we have an entry stamp one way and then we have an indefinite stamp. Both functions are intertwined in that one stamp. The idea that you're putting forward says that it's, oh, I'm sorry, so like can't be typed in front. But I'm saying that the stamp that is affixed to a passport, or it says national passport, when they arrive on island, is an entry stamp, which gives them the indefinite stamp at the same time. There are situations where, I'm not sure if we're still using this procedure, but there are situations where persons are living here, they don't travel. They don't know that this regime has started indefinite status. They come into immigration and they inquire. You would look at their status, see when last they regularized their status. If their last extension expired prior to the initialization of the indefinite stay, then they will be required to pay the sums that they owe prior to that, and then they will get fixed an extension sum, which is an indefinite stay stamp. So there are two different facets.
So would they actually get an indefinite stay stamp in their passport?
Yeah.
Or you only get that when you are arriving at the airport? As you say, if a person is living here,
Right.
can they come in and say, I'm applying for indefinite stay?
That has happened, and I would have to lean on the officers that work at Extension that is still happening, because I haven't worked at Extension for a while. I don't know if. But initially, that is what obtained, that they live here, you're OECS national, you don't require an extension anymore. So your passport is endorsed with a stamp that says indefinite stay. But that reoccurrence that you're speaking of happens because the stamp has a duality. It functions as an entry and as well as the indefinite stay. And that is what OECS required of us to do. Because prior to that, we were using our regular stamp, our generic entry stamp, and the fixing a code, which I think was 10, to indicate that you're an OECS national and you have been afforded indefinite stay.
Oh, okay.
But it is OECS requirements that
Well,
cause us
yeah.
to transition to that particular format of stamp, which is universal across the
Okay. Thank you. I think that clarifies it a bit for me. There's one thing I wanted to find out, which hasn't anything to do with OECS, and that is, why when I'm returning my stamp says I'm not allowed to work?
Your stamp does not say that.
No?
Your stamp does not say that.
That's it again.
We have two different stamps, two rules. Your rule does not say that.
So what stamp I get? Not a returning national?
Yeah, just one rule. All I get is a D.
Okay. I'm thinking of the older one. Okay. Oh. Sorry. Yes.
Charles, Senior Supervisor, Censorship and Residency Permit. I would like you to... Ms. Wood Charles, Senior Supervisor of Censorship and Residency Permit. Mr. Madam, I'm an Antiguan, married to Mr. Newton, who is a Jamaican. I'm an Antiguan, married to Mr. Newton, who is a Jamaican. We're married now for 1 year. Yes. We're married now for 1 year. Mr. Newton now, coming to immigration, can he get the OECS stamp? I would like you to explain this.
Mr. Newton is a Jamaican national.
Married to an
He's
Antiguan.
married to you,
Yes.
an Antigua.
Here in Antigua.
In Antigua, yeah.
In,
Coming in Antigua.
Yeah.
No, I will live in Antigua.
No, he lives in Antigua.
We live here.
yeah, but OECS, the OECS rights of free movement apply only to OECS nationals. If you're not a national, that is a citizen of one of the OECS member states, strictly speaking, OECS does not apply to you. However, for persons like Mr. Newton, if you're married to an OECS national, you have what are called contingent rights. Rights contingent on free movement. So that, you know, if I'm going to get up and go and live in St. Lucia, and I have a wife and family, I'm going to want to take my wife and family. Because, you know, separation of families is not good. So, the contingent rights regime allows those persons who are lawfully married to OECS nationals to also have certain rights contingent. Not quite the OECS free movement rights, but they have certain rights which would allow them also to accompany their spouse and also live and work in Antigua and Barbuda.
So
Yes, ma'am.
what
Would that spouse need a work permit?
Yeah, that spouse would need a work permit. Because that spouse really is from Jamaica. So,
And one more question, Mr. Wells. Does the right, who does it apply to? Is it just within CARICOM or person out there?
no, if you're married to somebody from
Anybody.
Canada, Germany, Australia, once you're a non-OECS person, the contingent rights regime would apply.
Yes. I'm not saying you get the last with respect to the contingent. If it is that, let's use the example that Miss Charles gave, that she's, sorry, beg your pardon, let's use the example that Miss Charles gave. So Miss Charles is married to Mr. Newton. Here, they live here in Antigua. Sorry, they live here, okay. I'm saying, let's use the example that Miss Charles gave. So Miss Charles is married to Mr. Newton. They both reside here. Miss Charles is Antiguan, Mr. Newton is Jamaican. Am I to understand, Ambassador, that if Miss Charles and Mr. Newton were to move from Antigua as a couple to St. Vincent or any other OECS member state, then Mr. Newton would get the indefinite stay based on the marriage to Miss Charles? Is that right? Or entry to another member state country? Is that?
My understanding is no.
So explain what you just mentioned beforehand. They don't. Like
But the contingent right is the right to move and work with your spouse.
right to move.
Yeah. But you may not necessarily get the indefinite stay stamp, but you would be allowed to remain, work, stay, all those things.
That is because it's not OECS.
So then they would.
Yes.
So what other? I think who had the question of what are the circumstances in which they would not get the indefinite, or they would get the indefinite? Is that a question that you posed? Mr. Newton?
Yes,
So
basically.
if they moved together as a couple to St. Lucia, you're saying that Mr. Newton may not get the indefinite stamp stay based on the marriage to.
Yes.
They may not.
They may not.
He may not. He may
She will get it, yeah.
And you see,
He may not get it.
he, I mean, Mr. Newton, the Jamaican.
The Jamaican.
Yeah, would not.
So he may not get it because he is a Jamaican. Miss Charles is the Antiguan.
She gets it.
Automatically, as a member state, a citizen of a member state, automatically get.
No, I completely understand with respect to Miss Charles, but if she was married to the spouse.
only a year?
No, take away the length of period of time. I just want to get, I think that's what we were having in this corner. So if you, Miss Mail, if you understand what I'm saying, if you
Yeah,
move.
but what I also wanted to say is that, you know, OECS has a free movement committee,
Right.
and it meets regularly. And these issues are always under discussion. We have an issue now with the driver's license. Now, persons are supposed to be able to move on their driver's license. So, the immigration officer, if I'm traveling to St. Lucia on my driver's license, the immigration officer in St. Lucia needs to know, is this person an OECS national? That's the most important thing he needs to know. Our driver's license, years ago, up to about, 3 or 4 years ago, it had nationality as a field, Antigua and Barbuda. That field was removed, and it has now been replaced by country of birth. Yeah. So, it may not tell the immigration officer in St. Lucia everything he needs to know, because Antigua has a high proportion of citizens who were born elsewhere. He might produce a driver's license and it says place of birth Syria, place of birth Lebanon, Dominican Republic, Jamaica, Guyana. It doesn't mean that person is not an Antigua. It just means they were born in Syria. So how would the immigration officer know that this person is entitled to free movement?
Excuse me.
Because it doesn't have the nationality of the person in the driver's license. There's another issue with the driver's license, I think, that was raised recently, and that is that, you know how travel is in the region. For those who are coming from south, they're probably going through Barbados. Barbados is not taking the driver's license. even before they weren't taking the driver's license. And now they have introduced kiosks. So when you go to Barbados now, you put your passport in the kiosk and it reads it and so on, and it generates 2 pieces of paper. One you take to the immigration officer and the other one you take to customs. So I think the committee is worried that the free movement based on your driver's license or other ID is being negated by the arrangements in Barbados and also in Trinidad, where they're not accepting a driver's license for purposes of travel. And so OECS people trying to use a driver's license to move from one OECS country to another are encountering problems because the in-transit country does not facilitate movement by driver's license. So that is something that is going to have to be sorted out.
Yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Ambassador. I think the discrepancy that we have, I think the scenario that Mrs. Charles used, there was a school of thought that if a CARICOM citizen is married to an OECS citizen, the CARICOM national would get the OECS status once they move from member state to another member state. That was the
Understanding,
of the
yeah.
person. Now, that is what we need a clarification on, because from what you're saying now, that's not the case. So that was the school of thought that many persons had, that once a CARICOM national is married to an OECS person, they automatically get the status of
And the
OECS person.
child.
And the children.
Independent.
Well, you know what I can do?
Once they move.
Let
Not
me,
once they're here.
yeah, once they're moving
Once they
and
move
on
to St.
entry.
Lucia, right, on entry.
Okay. Well, let me raise this issue at the OECS Free Movement Committee and see if we can get, perfect clarification on this issue. Because what we want to do is be consistent
Yes.
across the countries. We don't want Antigua doing one thing, Grenada doing something else, and St. Vincent doing something else again. So let's get clarification on this across all the OECS member states. In the meantime, I suggest we continue to do what we're doing. What are the... Oh, the contingent rights. Yes, the same clarification on contingent rights.
My example.
Yes, sure.
My personal example. So I'm Antigua, born and bred. I moved to St. Lucia 4 or 5 years ago, and I actually used my driver's license just to test out the whole, free movement thing. But at the time, I was married to a Guyanese. Not married anymore. At the time, I was married to a Guyanese. Our child, of course, is Antigua. She's born here. So I got the indefinite stay. It was no problem whatsoever. For him, being Guyanese, he got 6 months stamped in his passport initially, and then he had to go and apply for a work permit. But it was much easier there because he was married to an OECS national, as opposed to when he was here in Antigua, in just the, that process in getting a self-employed work permit and all of the supporting documents needed or whatever. Over there, he went, marriage certificate to an OECS citizen, and it was like less than 30 minutes. He literally got through. So I don't know if he had that bearing because he was married to an OECS citizen, if it was easier for him. But moving to St. Lucia, no, he didn't get the indefinite stay. The benefits wasn't afforded to him. Even with me, I got my national ID card in St. Lucia within a day. So when I was working, I got my benefits or whatever, but for him it was a completely different situation.
I guess, Ambassador, I guess soonest we can kind of make clarification on that, because I know for St. Lucia, especially with your counterpart, Dr. Clarence Henry, I know that those that are coming in and married to a CARICOM national in St. Lucia, they do extend it to the spouse. They do.
Well, actually, I'm reminded by Mr. Spencer, what we have been discussing at the Free Movement Committee is, if you are a non-OECS national married to an Antiguan, when you come in, you're given entry, and then you come to the immigration department and get your status regularized. But it would not be given to you on entry.
Right, but I think that the difference in example is that movement as a couple. So if it is that I met Mr. Newton's from Jamaica, and we got married here, we lived here, this was our place of residence, that's a completely different story.
Yeah,
As if
because
we were moving
yeah.
for it to be connected. I know for St. Lucia, that's what they have been doing. It's like if I was an Antiguan married to Jamaican and we both left together as a unit to St. Lucia, I know that that spouse that has the indefinite status.
Spouse gets the indefinite status.
But I will obviously yield to Ambassador to get back to us with that clarity,
Yeah,
so we know what to do at the airport and how to do this.
I have a question. When an OECS national arrives here from, because we have straight flights from the States, we have straight flights from England and Italy. So when we get that person, an OECS national coming from off of an international flight, do they reserve the right to present a driver's license upon entry from an international flight?
That's an interesting question.
Yes.
I believe the answer is yes, but it sounds interesting enough for us to raise it at the Free Movement Committee.
Because you're not operating in the domain, you're not coming from another
OECS country.
You're coming from
Yes, you might be coming from New York or wherever, but you're an OECS national. Yes, country. Very interesting. You see, this is why these sessions are so interesting.
Yes. Short answer to that, yes. Once they meet the burden, that they are in fact to land. If you have further concerns as an information officer, we as information officers have the right to ask for their international documents. They don't have the right to refuse the inspection of their passport, but they have the right to present that driver's license.
I disagree.
It's an interesting question which needs clarification because the purpose of OECS free movement is to facilitate travel between OECS countries. But also, for instance, if you are coming from St. Vincent and you're coming through Barbados and you arrive in Antigua, you're not coming from an OECS country, you're coming from Barbados.
And that's why Barbados has stopped out more or less and said that when you're in transit, you're going from Antigua to Grenada, you have to pass here. You want to pass it. You want to driver's license. I mean, there have been discussions, bilateral discussions to try and get them to after that. But to the best of my knowledge, they are still maintaining that you cannot travel through here on an OECS document because we're not an OECS country.
That's correct. And that discussion has been going on for years.
But then I'm moving from Antigua to Grenada. It's just a matter of course that I have to go through Barbados because we're not right. So you see the issue.
Yeah, Barbados is a hub. And in fact, they're not even actually landing here. You know it is, you arrive in Barbados, you go in the little glass house, the layout gate there that they have, and then you take your flight and go to where it is you're going. You never actually encounter an immigration officer who lands you. Barbados is a hub. Just like Antigua is a hub. Trinidad, you pass through, you are never really processed through immigration, you're in transit. So, you know, these are things that need to be clarified. I understand your question, and I understand the disagreement.
I'm going to tell you why I asked. I've encountered the police commissioner from Montserrat several times, and you know, it's just a polite back and forth between himself and I. He's saying he's now in Antigua. He reserves the right not to present his passport because he's now in Antigua, which is the domestic space. But I tell him, you're coming from the States.
Oh, he was coming on an international flight. And you all...
You have the right to ask for this.
And eventually he puts it down. But he goes all the way back to Miss Mark, stating he has had his eyesight with Miss Mark over and over and over and over again. That he reserves the right when he comes here from an international country to put down his driver's license. or his social security card, and not his passport.
Well, that's the same discussion we're having here, and people have different views about that. I believe it's a genuine difference of opinion. But this is a discussion that we have had. I'm sure it was an amicable discussion, very friendly and so on, no hard feelings. But as long as it's amicable and no bad feelings. Because I have some views about our own immigration form, which I've relayed to the chief. Yes. And it's just a matter of difference of opinion. I have engaged different immigration officers at the booth, at the airport.
But Mr. Murdoch, you're at that level that you can get that changed because it's the government who puts that on the form.
No, the chief can get it changed. I don't have anything to do with. I'm a guest here. I was invited to come here, but I don't have any. But I don't understand why an immigration officer needs to know whether I'm married, single, or other, or to know the last 6 countries that I went to, which I never remember.
I respectfully suggest that you put it to the committee of the Free Movement Committee of OECS, because that is a harmonized form that we use. And that form is...
Yeah, I've had the same discussion in Barbados, in Trinidad. They all want to know, sir, what's your status? I say, you mean like HIV? I say, no. So, well, some of them I just tell them plainly, it's not your business. So, but the real objective I think we should be moving to is to get rid of the form altogether. Now, Barbados has kiosks. Everywhere you go now has St. Martin's, and everywhere you go now has kiosks. You get in there.
Kiosk is just an additional step.
Yeah.
You still have to go through the steps that we have here. That's what I mean. They have the kiosk.
Yeah, they have the kiosk, and it generates the slip of paper, and you take the paper to the immigration officer. She looks at it and just wave you on.
I was there last month, and they still question me.
They question you?
They still went.
Well, they question those who look suspicious.
Other colleagues who are at the same boat said that they were doing so. I guess I need suspicious. But I want to trap it to the matter of contingent rights. It seems that we may have a bit of confusion between contingent rights on the system versus OECS. I think that's what's going on. With OECS, as Ms. O'Donoghue rightly said, when she went to St. Lucia as an Antiguan national, her husband, who's a Ghanaian, had an easier time because they were moving. The key to it is that you are moving. As an Antiguan national, I marry a third country spouse, whether Jamaican, Italian, German, Iraqi. They don't get afforded the same level of rights and processes as if I was an Antiguan national who was in Lucia, married to that same person, because we're moving, the free movement. And the CSM and OECS, while very similar in the way they operate, are on two different.
I agree with you. In fact, there are many parallels. OECS and CARICOM are 2 different integration arrangements that apply across the region, and the membership is not exactly identical, but Antigua and the other OECS members are members of both. And they have 2 different regimes. You have the CET with the Common External Tariff with CARICOM. OECS has a Common External Tariff too. It's just that OECS has set the external tariff at the same rate as CARICOM. So maybe you don't even know. But so there are many parallel things, and as usual, with 2 things operating in tandem, there's some conflicts, there's some overlaps, there's some redundancies, and we have to constantly, based on information coming from the field, you have to constantly monitor these things and to make the necessary arrangements and adjustments. So, as I said, I will certainly take back the contingent rights question, because I think there's some lack of clarity there with that. So when you get in the kiosks, well, don't all speak at once.
One person speaks.
Who's supposed to answer this question?
I would say you're closer to the answer than I. You're up on the hill.
Yeah, but I'm not the right interlocutor. I think it needs a chief. Anyway, I look forward to the day. But on our immigration form, I think we're getting some things confused. I think the tourism people want a profile of those who are coming, the tourists. Where are you from? What's your zip code? Are you married or single? This, that, and so on. And then they get a profile of the thing. But I don't think it should be on an immigration form. It should probably be on a form in the hotel. They can fill that out at their leisure. And you know, when you go to the UK, well, they don't even have the forms anymore. But until recently, the form was that big, it asked you about 4 or 5 questions. They'll ask you whether you're married. Sir. On what? Sorry? Uh-huh.
I'm self-employed.
Uh-huh.
I moved to another OECS country. I want to clarify, I was going to get the same benefit. I already had contribution in the system. And I go to the OECS country. I continue my trade. Do the same benefits.
Yes.
Will it continue?
Yes, there is an agreement between all the OECS countries, between their social security systems, for what they call portability of rights, meaning you carry your rights with you. So if you've been contributing, if you're a member of Social Security and you've been contributing, you're a contributing member in good standing, then when you go to Grenada, Dominica, wherever you're going, you take those rights with you. And the amounts that you have paid are carried over. So it's not starting over again in Dominica. It's continuing as though you're still in Antigua. And that arrangement is in place. Sorry, one please.
In Antigua, if you retire at age 60, you don't have to wait until you're 62 to get Social Security. You don't know the other terms and conditions in other countries get Social Security.
Well, the truthful answer is no. But what I do know is that all the OECS countries are moving towards harmonization of their social security systems. So that, just like Antigua and Barbuda is moving towards, I think they're going towards 65 as the age of retirement gradually. 62, and then, what is it, every 2 years they add a year? Something like that. So, but the objective is to reach 65. And then the retirement age will be set at 65. And that's what they want to do across all the OECS. The social security boards are talking to one another. They're the ones who put in place the portability agreement, and they're also working on harmonization of conditions and benefits.
So let's say Dominica has not yet put their social security now I'm retired at 60 and I can use Dominica and start getting my social security because I am 60.
Well, that sounds like a yes.
Yes.
But are you trying to game the system, Mr. Simon? But as it is now, lawfully, it sounds like you can. Because you would be retired in Antigua and not retired in Dominica. You're a very clever man, Mr. Simon. There was a question here. You.
I know for CARICOM we have the CARIC pass. Does OECS have any sort of document like that?
Yes, driver's license.
Is it driver's license?
Yeah.
Okay, so why doesn't OECS have an OECS pass?
Because, you know,
one standardized set of information.
what they found with the carry pass is that, how many carry passes have you seen? Thank you. And you know why? Because it's not widely distributed, it's not widely known, and it's too expensive. And people, it costs $300 US a year to get that carry pass. Every year you pay the $300 US dollars to renew that. So people are saying, well, why do I need a carry pass when I have a passport that costs me, you know, $100 for 10 years? why would I buy a carry pass for 300 US every year? And I get the same benefit. I get into the country the same way. So it is not popular, basically. And I think it's for those reasons. Also, it needs infrastructure. There's a machine you're supposed to put it in, a kiosk. You know, an immigration kiosk when you arrive. I saw them in the airport in Grenada. They were still covered in plastic. I don't know if they have them activated as yet. But I myself have hardly ever seen a carry pass. It's a nice idea, but it didn't really take off. And I suspect it's going to die a natural death. Yeah, nobody going to pay 300 US for something where they can get an equal benefit with a driver's license or some other document, ma'am. You know, ma'am, that's a very important question. We discuss that at every meeting of the commissioners. We need a public education program. Don't assume that people know, because probably they don't. And I was personally reminded of that when they had the referendum on CCJ. I thought people knew about CCJ, but they don't. And even if some people who work in certain positions and so on may know about CCJ or OECS or whatever, you know, the general public, the man on the bus to Param, he doesn't know. And I think that's where we need to reach out. That was the idea behind some of these cartoon videos and so on, to get the message out. But I will agree with you that a lot more work needs to be done on that to make people aware. So, but you know, everything costs money. Ma'am.
Sir, you just mentioned about the short videos that we had. Are those being aired on ABS?
They were. I remember them being, I remember submitting them to ABS and asking them to air them, and they did. I suspect they may have fallen off in more recent times, but they need to be regularly on the air. And you see how short they are. It can be like a filler. You know, like before the news at 7 o'clock, bam, OECS video. And I think that's probably your maximum viewing period. You know, when you'd have most people watching TV and so on, and you put on those.
You know what I could suggest, Mr. Brother?
Also, just a thought that came to mind, the advertising digital boards in various places. Can the government initiate a deal with the owners for these, like a few dollars off, whatever we may have to pay by running these ads?
Brilliant. Mr. Spencer?
He's writing it down.
We need to do that. Absolutely brilliant.
Even those at the airport, you know, where like when you're in arrival, the TV screens.
Yes.
Yeah.
That ads on the TV screen, on the arrival screen?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. See? Perfect.
Pastor Mr. Anthony got a question. Right here in front of you, Mr.
The digital one? Yeah, one going up and one, there's another one. Two of them coming down.
The last video that you showed on TV, I saw that on ABS before, many times.
Many
but
times?
I believe the problem was that the time of day that they were airing it, I saw it like around 10 to 11 o'clock.
Oh, yeah. That's the problem. Yeah. And you're right, they need to put it on at the right time. At 10:30 in the morning, well, you know, who's watching that? What you were doing home?
I was off. I was. I was a shift worker. Standard 9 to 5.
Yeah. So it's a question of timing where you're going to hit the maximum audience. You're right. So there was another question.
Back to the question of course, OECS National in an international space using the driver's license. What's the conclusion of that?
Well, we had a discussion that if you are an OECS national, but you're coming from a third country, like New York, you're coming off a flight from New York, then I believe it is expected you will present international travel documents. And then there are those who say that, but I'm an OECS national, and so I'm entitled to use my driver's license and I'm entitled to free movement. So I think we have a difference of opinion developing, and we need to sort it out at the regional level. Because we don't want, as always, we're looking for consistency. We want all of us to be doing the same thing, otherwise it's going to be confusion.
Because they say with space in your passport, so I prefer to use my driver's license, even though I'm coming out to New York.
Yeah, I think people do it for convenience. Some people also, you have Antiguans who live in New York, and there's a charge. There's some kind of charge. If you come in as, they have a US passport, but if they use it, I think they pay, their charge is higher, and they use the Antigua passport. And sometimes they use one coming in and another one going out. Confusion, you know? So I think we need consistency across the board. People, well, I think, you know, if you arrival, departure, and so on, you need to be consistent. Present the same travel document. Otherwise, I think they're trying to evade a charge. The tax is different. Yeah.
We had that situation when customs used to take the tax.
The embarkation tax.
Yes. Whereas persons would try to utilize the OECS sell Antigua sync its passport for lesser charge. But customs now is the document that you're traveling on. That
Yes.
document. You're going to a US base and you have a US passport. That's where the tax is on and not.
No, people will try, and there's nothing wrong with that if you are trying to pay a lesser charge.
Sir, I was just going to say that it's clearly encompassed in the document for OECS traveling with the driver's license. So I see no reason why there should be any discrepancy whether the person just simply presents the driver's license or it's accompanied by a passport, regardless of where they're coming from. Because an Antiguan born in Antigua or in any other OECS state is still birthed in that place. There's no difference as opposed to where they're coming from. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand, but I think, to be honest, OECS free movement was envisaged for promoting free movement within that OECS space, that OECS single space, as they call it.
Precisely. So now he is having that movement from Antigua to Montserrat. That's his space.
No, he was coming from New York, isn't it? He was coming from New York, coming off a JetBlue or somebody.
Yeah, but now that he has entered the space. So it's common. Regardless where he's coming from, but you have entered the space of the OECS. You're leaving to same space within the OECS. It should be okay.
So basically you're saying it don't matter where you're coming from.
Once you bond there, that's it.
Okay, well, as long as immigration can make up their mind.
Decide what ID they use with government issues ID, because some of them are government to gain anything into a country within the state. So I don't know if you guys could read it and let them know what is it that you require on the order to go to the state.
Well,
Not on the form,
the ID.
Yeah.
Because, well, it was general. What they said is any government issued photo-bearing ID. And that's a wide, we have a lot of cards and IDs. In fact, we need to rationalize our cards.
Because what happened, I remember back in the day, the Antigua driver's license had on nationality.
Yes, and we need to
But
put
now
it
they've
back.
changed it and put places like so it's creating a
Place of birth don't tell you anything.
So that may be, to account with the package.
Yeah, it needs to be rationalized.
Because that would also help with free movement.
Because government issued photo ID encompasses a wide range of cards, ID cards. Voters registration, driver's license, medical benefits, social security, what else there? Yeah. And in other different countries, they also have other cards that we have in St. Lucia and St. Vincent. They have banana growers card issued by the government if you're a banana grower. Has on your ID and so on. You also have cards issued by companies. Let's say Liat. Liat has a card, but Liat is not a government. But I think the cards need to be rationalized, and technologically, it is possible to have all those things on one card. So you don't need 6, 8, and 10 cards. Your driver's license, social security, medical benefits, voter registration, all the things that you need can be on one card. The technology is there. So, to me, there are too many cards. And you're right, the thing is too general. We need to specify what information you're looking for on the card. There should be a minimum agreed information that's on the card. Your name, date of birth, whatever you want, whether you're married or single, you know. So, that's another topic for discussion.
So if I'm traveling on one of those government-issued IDs between member state countries, you said you spoke about traveling between hubs, and some of these hubs don't take the national ID. As I'm traveling on trusty Liat Airlines between, my intention is to go between member states. Due to unforeseen circumstances, I have to divert to another country that isn't a member state. Are talks being held with those countries about accepting those IDs?
Well, like which country you mean, like Guadeloupe or Martinique or something? Because let me tell you, this is a situation I encountered quite recently. A woman, she went to Barbados to get her visa from the US Embassy. Applied for the visa. So obviously you leave your passport. And she's coming back to Antigua. And Leah tells her, now all she has is her driver's license now because she's left the passport in the US Embassy. So she comes and Leah tells her she cannot take the flight with the driver's license because she wasn't born in Antigua. This is a person who is an Antiguan and has been living here for 40 years. So I think there's some confusion, and it's not just immigration. The airlines too have different ideas. Sorry? Needs training. Yeah, she was in a panic. You want to know how she gonna get home?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they photocopy your passport, photocopy their status. You know, say they have a work permit, they photocopy that so they can present that to show. So even when they come back to the airport and they left the passport, they can show us at the airport. This is my status. Yeah, they say I have a work permit. Yes.
I have a work permit.
So it's sometimes it's up to the person who is traveling, their own responsibility. So that's where it comes in, traveling even within the member state. And you were talking about place of birth, because let's say for instance, a Syrian person born in Syria, they have an Antigua passport. We know changing the passport, their passport is at the passport. They're processing a new one, but they want to go to Dominica, and the passport, the driver's license says born in Syria.
Yes, country of birth.
It's country of birth. But it's up to that person, their responsibility that maybe they have their certificate, right, or they photocopy that old passport so they could even show that I'm an Antiguan citizen.
You see, it's very important to get things lined up because, you know, international travel today, regional international travel, there's a high degree of security and everything has to match up and APIS and all these kind of things. Same with the passport. You have a situation now where in the field that says name in the passport, for ladies who are married, the passport office has been putting Natasha James Nee Joseph. Now let me tell you, that's not your name. Your name is Natasha James. You may have been born Joseph, but your name is Natasha James. Those two words constitute your name. Nee Joseph, nee is a French word that means born. Natasha James, born Joseph. That's what they're trying to tell you. But Natasha James, nee Joseph is not your name. Your name is Natasha James. So everything has to line up nowadays. Even on your travel itinerary from the travel agent, your passport, everything must have on the exact. You ever notice on the thing they say, please print your name as in your passport? That's why. Everything has to match up. So when you go to the passport, it says Natasha James Nee Joseph, and another document says Natasha James, they're going to tell you, come please, secondary inspection. We need to talk to you. Because you have two different documents with two different names. So I'm just making the point that everything needs to match up with perfect clarity. Otherwise, you know immigration officers and how they behave, right? Stop, 1 second.
So in light of this issue with the place of birth instead of nationality on our driver's license, are talks being held with Transport Board to correct this to say, okay, make it effective as of December. Licenses that are being reissued or new ones being issued, please ensure that it states nationality along with place of birth, or is it just going to revert?
Well, I think it's going to be either or. They're going to have to revert to place of birth because they tell me there's not enough space on the card. But yes, we've had these discussions with Transport Board people. They're technology people. Where's Mr. Spencer? They're technology people who actually produce the cards. I had a meeting with them about 2 weeks ago, right? Yeah, and they haven't given us a date, but they intend to revert to nationality rather than place of birth. I have no idea why they changed it. They don't have any idea why they changed it either, quite frankly.
It's important for them to put nationality. I can be a German national, for example, and I came to Antigua, I'm living here, I haven't acquired citizenship, but I can get a driver's license. So it's important that the nationality doesn't place of birth, because I could be born in Syria and I acquire the Antiguan nationality. On the other hand,
But nobody would know if it's not on your driver's license. That's the situation that has. Let's say Rames Hadi. He has a driver's license. He goes to St. Lucia. Now he's entitled to free movement. He's an OECS national. He's an Antigua. But when he presents that card, it's going to say country of birth, Syria. And they're going to tell him, sorry sir, you're not entitled. Because they're going to assume that he's just a Syrian. So that's very important. Let's see what Transport Board does, but they have promised to rectify that. Yeah, but some of them don't know. You know. Another card again. You mean one card, national ID, driver's license, voter, social security, medical benefits, so on? Well, I'm in favor of that. The one card, yes. I thought you mean one more. Yeah, and as I say, it's technologically feasible. Because you have other situations too, you know. If your driver's license is being used as a travel document, it must have certain security features. You can't have a low security card that people can interfere with being used for travel. So that's an issue as well. You also have to have consistency across all the member states so that all their cards are also of a certain security level. Now suppose you are a resident of Dominica and you're a bad driver. You get into a lot of accidents and the magistrate suspend your license. What happens then? If your person doesn't have a passport. Because the driver's license is now also a travel document. So there are lots of things that you have to consider. That's a good question. OECS has realized that there's some problems with the CARICOM Treaty, and not just in free movement and so on, in some other areas. So they have established what they call, well, it used to be called the carve-out committee. And that is, OECS is saying we want a carve-out within CARICOM. Because, some of the things we're doing in OECS, these things are ahead of what CARICOM is doing and trying to do, like our common currency. An objective of CARICOM is also to have a common currency, but they are no closer to it now than when they began. One of the objectives also, if you read the CARICOM Treaty, one of the objectives is free movement of persons, like OECS has done. But instead, what CARICOM did was they decided to do certificates. So you have a, what do we call it again? Skill certificate and these things. And so they decided to go at it in stages. But ultimately, it's the same objective as OECS, free movement. So we are trying to sort out some of these things, and the carve-out committee is to negotiate with CARICOM about all of these things. Because let me tell you also, technically speaking, OECS free movement is a violation of the CARICOM Treaty. That's what they're saying. Because they're saying if you give free movement to a St. Lucian and you do not give it to a Jamaican, you are violating the CARICOM Treaty, because the CARICOM Treaty requires you not to discriminate between different member states. So technically speaking, when you give free movement to OECS nationals and you don't give it to Jamaica or Guyana or whoever else, you're violating the CARICOM Treaty. And trust me, one day somebody's going to take it to CCJ. And it's going to be boom.
But how we not granting free movement to them? They have specific categories, and these people, when they come with this skill certificate, after they've gone through the verification process, they're entitled to free movement.
Yeah, it's a stage, but OECS is just one time. Yeah. But CARICOM has decided, yeah, well, do you really want them to catch up? You want free movement with Jamaica?
No.
You want free movement with Guyana?
No.
I didn't hear you. You had to speak up.
No.
Yeah, so that's the real issue. It's that way for a reason. Yeah. These are the realities. But at the same time, I've never heard anybody say that there are too many OECS nationals in Antigua. Never heard anybody say too many Vincentians here, too many Grenadians, Dominicans. They may say there are too many Jamaicans, they may say there are too many Guyanese, and they may say there are too many people from Dominican Republic. But for OECS, I've never really heard the complaint. Have you?
No.
No, I think we're good. Guadeloupe is an associate member. They became an...
If I go there, What benefits do I get?
None. Gendarme will lock you up. Yeah. What has happened is Guadeloupe and Martinique have joined the treaty as associate members, but they have not signed the protocol to the revised Treaty of Bastille. And it's the protocol that has in Article 12 about the free movement obligations that you have. So they haven't signed that. So as of right now, they're not participating in the free movement regime. Well, they're going through some internal processes and so on, you know. They've reached a stage where they have actually joined as associate members. And I see, especially with Guadeloupe, they have a certain amount of enthusiasm for OECS. You know, they think it's meaningful, they like it. So I think they will also move along to the stage of signing the protocol, and we will implement free movement with Guadeloupe and Martinique also. Because, you know, with them, they bring the OECS population to like 1 million. Because they're like, you know, 300,000 people and so on. So, numbers are good.
But Mr. Brother, if they were to become full-fledged members, along with us, what about like the currency?
The currency? Yeah, well, you can be a full-fledged member of CARICOM, of OECS, and not participate in the currency union. You see, that's like BVI. BVI, well, they're an associate member, but they use the US dollar. You know, and so that's possible. If you separately join the currency union, well, yeah, you will have the same currency. But even if they join, chances of, I mean, they are literally part of France. They elect members to the National Assembly in Paris. So, Guadeloupe and Martinique legally are no different from Lyon or Marseille or anywhere else in France. And that's the euro. So I suspect they will still use the euro, even if they sign the protocol. Can you hear me?
No, nobody can.
Well, they're very soft spoken.
So I was saying that earlier, you would have meant that when Mr. Simon is on the team and the lawyer, then you would say, if as a wife, I would get this status. And you're saying that maybe something I don't know. Based on the country side, you're saying that the country side, you would do that way. Or is there something that you have to watch, or you set the standard, you're saying, this is what all of you do. Like, you know, coming in, this is our OECS protocol, and this is what we do that I, as opposed to kind of doing everyone's interpretation, or everyone's interpretation. So for me, I'm concerned, because normally, even on CSC, if I'm married to
it's a bit confusing, and it's something that needs to be clarified. I mean, these things have been discussed at the Free Movement Committee, you know, and we have representation from immigration, Ms. Charles. Ms. Charles. She is on our committee, and I remember she participated in the last meeting by Zoom or Skype or whatever it was. So, you know, we need the input from people on the ground who can give us the practical aspects, and this is part of that exercise too. I mean, I've learned a lot standing here for the past few minutes. And that's the kind of input we need, because you know, you get bureaucrats, they sit in a room and they decide certain things, but they need the information flowing up from the troops on the ground. Well, if there are no more questions.
One last question. I have one last
Okay,
question.
3 last questions.
In reference to Social Security, your benefits move from one member state to another. Your finances, good finances,
Oh, yes, that's done between the 2 different social security boards. They will have to transfer, saying this person has worked for 10 years, they've made a contribution of X in Antigua, and we now transfer these benefits over to you, and you now will take the person and continue on the way. Yeah. Otherwise it wouldn't be practical, or it wouldn't be equal. Some countries would pay more than others. Yes, ma'am.
We have this procedure that we perform at the airport. When a Montserrat national, the person that was born in Montserrat, arrives in Antigua with a passport from anywhere, whether it be from the United States, the United Kingdom, Denmark, anywhere, we give them the indefinite stay stamp in the passport. But when another OECS national,
I have to advise you, people are saying no.
Sorry, Mr. Ambassador.
That's what I was told.
Right in all equivalent.
For the British
Or not OECS.
Yeah, but then when we have the other nationals that pass, we don't give them. When they have the foreign passport.
If you're
I
born
was wondering what was the difference.
if you're born in Montserrat and you have a British passport, Montserrat passport, or British overseas territory, that's what you get. Not a US passport or a Swiss passport or anything like that.
Okay, so it applies to everybody across the board.
Only if you're born in Montserrat.
Only for Montserrat then?
It's in every cube. Look in the cube.
There was a third question.
Who is that, Miss Mail?
Well, I wasn't on the question, but I want to see what. Because from what I get from what is that OECS national, a Montserrat is afforded a stamp, an indefinite stay stamp as an OECS national, regardless of the passport that you carry. But that is not being done for any other OECS country. Now, discussions that I have been privy to as a regional level say to me that we should be affording that privilege to all OECS nationals, regardless of what passport they carry.
See, for Jamaica, if a Grenadian comes off JetBlue with an American passport,
Born in Grenada.
you put indefinite stay in that American passport?
Yeah, no, really do that. That is what is being posited. That is not what we practice. But that is what.
That's up for discussion.
That is what should. That's the procedure.
It should be
my understanding of that.
across the board.
Well,
But as you said, there are a lot of things that are still in.
yeah, that's the thing. These are issues that obviously we need to resolve, and at our next Free Movement Committee meeting, make sure you send your strongest contingent, your best batsman, and we will raise these issues, because I think it's just not clear. Just not clear. And if immigration is confused, imagine me. Sorry, I was touching the microphone. Yeah. Didn't realize that was a microphone.
Ambassador, is that it for questions? I think that
Is that it for questions, comments, and queries? If it is, I thank you very kindly. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Ambassador. Ambassador Murdoch and his team, on behalf of the Department of Immigration, we wish to thank you. This session was definitely much needed, and it was very thought-provoking. I am hoping, with your leave, Ambassador, that this is not the last time that we do such an interactive session, as it is greatly needed, not just for HQ, but for the various ports that we have under our department. So I hope it's not the last time. And I'm hoping that most of the information, some of it was very enlightening for me. I know that the ambassador has some homework to do for us to come back with some clarification with some of the topics mentioned. And I'm hoping that we'll get that in short course so then we can go ahead and practice what we're supposed to be practicing at the ports. So again, I wish to thank you, Ambassador. It's the first, but I'm hoping it's not the last. And I also wish to thank your team, because without you, this would not have been possible. So a round of applause for the ambassador and his team. I'm going to briefly yield back to the ambassador because I know Ambassador Murdoch and his team have a few questions to pose to the audience, just as a little, something as a little fun gimmick, right, Ambassador? I think there may be some prizes to give to them for those who answer the questions correctly. But in addition to the question, I see you put up your hand, Mr. Simon. He hasn't asked the question yet. But in addition to the questions that the ambassador and his team are about to present to the department, I know that they had acknowledged and noted some contributions that came from our officers that they were very impressed with. I know in totality, we were very interactive, but there were some that had some good points for discussion. So I wanted to applaud them. I wanted to acknowledge Miss Batista. Oh, okay. So I think there's a photo opportunity. If you could just come for your photo opportunity. Yes, this is Miss Batista here. Oh. Who had the best copy?
Oh.
Yes. Oh. I think it's a box with a new car key for a car.
There's a car key, but no car.
There's a car key, but no car. So yeah.
Thank you very much for your contribution.
We also want to acknowledge Ms. Charles, who had the very thought-provoking question with the contingent, right? So thank you for.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, and see you at our next Free Movement Committee meeting.
Yes, yes. We also wish to acknowledge Ms. Walbrook, who is extremely interactive in the session.
Walbrook, congratulations. Thank you very kindly.
Also, from Residency and Citizenship, Ms. Jacobs.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Yes.
Okay,
Ms. Jacobs. I'm not too sure if this next individual should actually be getting a prize because she sits on another committee, but we'll still acknowledge Ms. Mail if you could come forward.
Ms. Mail, congratulations. Thank you very much for your contribution.
I also want to acknowledge two data clerks. I know one of them I have mentioned in another capacity, in another forum, for not being so boldly presenting questions, but I'm having some eye contact with him. I believe that is Mr. Anthony. So I want to thank you for your brief contribution, if you could come up as well. For the benefit of those that weren't in the, what forum did we have? The first aid. Mr. Anthony made some good contributions in our first aid training as well, and I'd like to say keep it up, so congratulations. there was another data clerk, Mr. Smith, if you could step forward. You also had a brief contribution to be made. So yeah, oh, so you can turn it around.
Smith,
Yes.
that's your real name?
Yes.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Thank you for your contribution.
Thank you. So I wish to thank all for their brief contributions and their comments. I'm now going to yield to Ambassador Murdoch and his team because they're going to throw a few quiz questions out. I'm hoping that I can see some of the females come up and take, because you know I'm for the girl power, but I'll yield to Ambassador Murdoch to make his brief presentation. Ambassador, what questions
I don't
do you
really
have
have
for
a
the
presentation.
OECS?
I think Mr. Spencer and Son, he has some questions he
Okay,
wants to
sure.
ask.
Okay.
And if you answer the
Pop
questions
quiz.
correctly, I think he has something for you. Small token. But what I wanted to say is, Chief, I'm willing to be back. We continue this discussion. I'll come
Yes.
as often as you ask me.
Thank you.
And, you know, when I come, I bring goodies.
You like goodies.
Okay, so first question. How many member states make up the OECS Economic Union?
Oh, somebody has to put up their hand. Come on.
Shout out the answer.
All right, give them a difficult one. Give them something else for them to put up their hand.
Who can name the 7 OECS member states?
Somebody come up. Who?
Someone?
Her hand
Anyone?
was up first. Which one? The one in the middle. Her hand was up first.
Miss Walbrook.
So name them. You got 10 seconds to name them.
And no help.
Barbuda, St. Lucia, St. Kitts Nevis, Grenada, Dominica, Montserrat, St. Vincent.
Of course, document everything. Who is the present chair of the OECS authority? Wow.
Well, that was a...
Come. That's correct.
Good job.
Ambassador Murdoch, what is his job? What is his title with regards to the OECS? Ambassador Murdoch.
He accepted it.
Wow. Really? Wow. Okay, question. Who is the first chairman of the OECS?
Miss Payne.
Where was the last OECS authority meeting held?
Hands, anybody?
Hands, nobody?
Hands? The young lady here.
Oh,
Yeah.
come
Yes.
on. Here's the answer. Okay. Moving on.
Okay, moving on. Next question. Before Prime Minister Brown assumed chairmanship, who was the previous chairman of the OECS authority?
Miss Bright. Mr. John
Sorry?
St. Louis. Said Mr. John St. Louis.
No.
I didn't know that.
Okay. Come on, this is an easy one. This is an easy one. No? Go ahead, the young man here.
Isn't it?
Bravo. From St. Vincent.
St. Vincent.
Those are your muscles, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah. Who is the governor of Central Bank?
Okay, who is the governor of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank? Who is the present governor of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank? No.
That's the deputy governor.
That's the deputy. No, no. Yes.
Mrs. Charles. Mrs. Charles. Oh, well. Yeah, she did. She did, didn't she? Did she?
In which country? Caribbean city. Take note of that. Ask them. See if anybody put up their hand.
That's being mean.
In which member state is the Eastern Caribbean Civil Aviation Authority
Based.
based? Thank you. Who is the Director General, the present Director General of the OECS? Who is the present Director General of the OECS? That's an easy one. No. No, I'm not Mr. Bathworth.
Right over
Yes.
Put your phones away.
Where is the OECS Secretariat?
Wow.
Took a picture of her.
Two prizes?
There was an answer
We have another
Sure.
one. Yeah.
No problem.
That's the last one.
Yay! With her phone in her hand.
always selfie with.
Hey, Google is amazing.
I know.
Okay, who can name two associate members of the OECS?
Hey,
Whoa. Okay.
Mr. Anthony.
Who? EVI
and Marty.
What's the last item?
Okay.
I heard that.
All right, final question. Name a country in which the OECS has a diplomatic mission. Name a country in which the OECS has an embassy.
Oh, someone. I heard it.
Right over.
I heard it. No, I heard it behind.
Morocco.
Where? Behind. Somebody behind. Who said it? Was somebody behind.
You guys are very good lip readers.
You said it. She said it. Morocco. It's very nice. Sorry.
All right. Thank you so much.
Round of applause for all the recipients. Unless the ambassador has any other comments or parting words, I know that we've taken up most of your morning, but again, we just want to show our appreciation and thank you and your team again. And we look forward to hearing back from you in short order with the topics of clarification.
Perfect. Thank you very much for having me. It's been fun.
Would you mind if we could just have one photo op, if we could take it this way with your...
Yeah, sure.
Do you want to come? Okay. So should we see if we can get a little closer for the photo op? Where shall we? Where do you want us? Should we go over here? Sorry. Is this better for you? Like here? Do you guys want to come over on this side?
That way.
This way?
Yeah, because I think they're already.
Everybody's there already.
Yeah, right? You can stand. Yeah. Photographer, where we being placed? Where's the placement?
Where am I going?